Yes.
Okay, I think we're ready.
2 seconds. There we go. Yes.
Okay. Yes. All right. Well, here we are with our next webinar. We are very excited about this. Usually you see a familiar face of Dr. Liz England, our CPD founder, but she is in motion. She's traveling today and may not be able to join us. So I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar with our dear friend Beatrix Price. And Beatrix is lecturer, teacher trainer, language in the language pedagogy department in Budapest, Hungary. She comes to us from Budapest. And we are all very, very excited because she is going to talk to us about possible leadership paths in English language. And so this is a topic that is quite timely and relevant, and I'm sure that you are going to take home lots of great information from Beatrix. And so without further ado, I will turn it over to Beatrix. And if you would, please raise your hand for any questions, or you can put your questions in the chat box. We will be monitoring both, and Beatrix has agreed to answer questions as we go, and then we will also save some time at the end for questions. So thank you once again for joining us today, and I will turn it over to Beatrix. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Linda. So thanks for the nice introduction. I don't know how much more I should say about myself, maybe just a little bit, how I got here, because it's quite interesting. I live in Budapest in Central Europe, in Hungary, and I became quite involved in my own national English Language Teachers Association, ELTA Hungary, quite a number of years ago, not very early in my career. But then as I started going to the events, I became very enthusiastic about the life of the association, and I volunteered. And as we will hear today, leadership progress is just going on and on and on and on. And of course, after being a volunteer in my own association, I got in contact with many people in my area, in Central Europe, in Western Europe. And then I started going to the international conferences to ELTA in the UK. And then in the pandemic, of course, we missed all these wonderful conferences and the contacts with people, with our dearest friends in the ELT profession. And then meetings started to go online. And suddenly I discovered that Liz England was a real person. She was a real professional in life. I thought England is just a country name then. And because I was writing my doctoral dissertation on English Language Teachers Associations, one of my Bibles is this one by Liz England, the TESOL Career Path Development. And then I joined the group. It was the TESOL Gulf group. And Liz and I and all the others became very good friends over the sessions. We used to meet on Tuesdays. And actually, I know some of you by face now through these little COPs, because I keep seeing you here or there. I've only been to the United States once in my life, and now this is a virtual visit. But the day after tomorrow, I'm going to Belfast to the IATFL conference, which is going to be a face-to-face conference this year. So a little bit of virtual conferencing now, or meeting now, and next week, the real conference. So that's really my background that I just wanted to share with you before I start my presentation, because I brought a little presentation for you, but I would love to talk a little bit during the presentation and ask you questions. If we are too many, then I will ask you to put replies in the chat box. And if not too many, then we can just shout in our answers or the reply to my question, if that's okay. So I'm sharing my screen now. And Linda, would you please tell me if this is still not the
It's not the full screen.
Yeah.
We're seeing the other slides also.
Yes. All right. Let me just try again. This is interesting because I'm not using my own Zoom, which means that this works a little bit differently than normally. Yes. Okay. Let's hope that this is now going to work. Wait a sec. Coming back. I do this every day. I didn't know why it didn't work. So what about now? Is it still the same?
It's the same. We're not seeing the full screen. We're seeing your other slides on there.
Okay. So why is it so?
There's a way to do it. I forget which way, where when you're presenting like this on Zoom, you can press to see your notes, but it'll show us the whole presentation the way you wanted us to see. Let me see.
Wait a minute. What about this one now?
Perfecto.
No, so
No.
what you need to do is where it says, oh, if you can share that again, I can do it for
And
you.
this one? No?
That's it. That's it.
There you go.
Good. Super.
Brava.
Yes. I'm really sorry, but this totally worked differently when I use my own Zoom platform. So, as I promised, I'm going to talk about leadership paths. And it's really interesting. When I started my doctoral research about 5-6 years ago, there was hardly any literature on English language teachers associations. And that was the 50th year of both TESOL and IATFL, the 50th anniversary birthday of the two associations. And then suddenly a couple of articles, not just a couple, a few articles came out in 2016. And that was the result that another wonderful book, A Role of Language Teachers Association in Professional Development, came out, exactly the topic of my dissertation. And as I already showed you, Liz England's TESOL Career Path Development book as well. But before these, there were just a few articles in the field in the whole world. And in my doctoral dissertation, I did interview studies, focus group interview studies with leaders of associations, both TESOL and IATFL context. And then very interesting results came out. So when these books were available to buy them, I looked at my own dissertation and I thought, I didn't find anything new, because these are exactly the same things that I found in my research. Nevertheless, there are some differences, and I'm going to share them now. And this is now the last slide, right? Okay, no, what is it doing? I really don't know what's happening. It never did this before. It suddenly goes to the very last, never mind. Which one can you see? The last slide, right? Yes, sorry. And can you see now the overview of the session?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So just a brief overview. As a start, I'm going to talk about communities of practice. And I'm pretty sure that all of you know that communities of practice are groups of people who share the same interest, the same problems, the same knowledge field, and they deepen their knowledge together in engaging in the same activities. And then after the communities of practice, I go on to the CPD paths, the career path development paths. And then I talk about my findings from my research. And then I would like to see us, what kind of milestones we had in our professional lives, in our professional trajectories. Before I start theoretical background, I thought that I would like to bring these acronyms to you, because I'm sure that we all know, but when I send a proposal to TESOL or something, then people ask me back, what is an ELTA? And then in my dissertation, I write about English Language Teachers Associations, because there are different associations. There are subject teachers associations, language teachers associations, associations for medical doctors, for lawyers, for librarians, etc. But I think that in our case, we are talking about English Language Teachers Associations. Therefore, I use the acronym ELTA. And then in IATFL context, we use the expression SIG, the special interest groups, but in your context, you use the interest sections, right? Interest sections. And the CPD is another interesting acronym, because continuing professional development is widely used. But of course, since Lizzie's book, Career Path Development, of course, it's another acronym that is CPD. And then apart from SIGs, we also have the regional branches in our associations, and then lots of little communities of practice, or the big communities of practice, depending on the size, depending on the association. And then all of you know what IATFL is, all of you know what TESOL is. It's interesting because in my context, sometimes people don't know what TESOL is. So I have to explain what it is. Everybody knows here in Europe what IATFL is, but they don't know much about TESOL. We are still a little bit far away from each other, so we are trying to close the gap. And then also in America, as far as I have seen, you often use English as a second language. And here in our context, we always use English as a foreign language, because in Europe, we never have English as a second language context. So these are just a couple of acronyms I wanted to cover, if that's all right. And now I come to Lizzie's TESOL career path development model. She says that we all start pre-service teachers working towards a degree, and some people are lucky enough to get involved with teachers' associations already at this early age, and some people only connect to associations later. The first couple of years of our profession is the novice teachers phase, and then the mid-careers. Liz says that teachers who occupy positions within their institutions, these are the mid-career teachers, and the veteran teachers are people with extensive experience and lots of responsibility and lots of roles in their life. And usually, she says that these people have roles within their institutions as well as in teachers' associations. For me, who I grew up in a communist country, this veteran, this word is very strange, I must admit, because it has a different connotation from the communistic times. The veterans who were wearing all these Russian hats and the little badges and everything. So for me, it's a really interesting word. And Liz also says that semi-retired teachers are the ones who already retire from their own institutions, but may be able to work in part-time jobs and they have a lot of time. So therefore they don't have any time because they volunteer for a lot of things. And so they keep themselves busy. Going back to communities of practice, Wenger developed his model over the years, over the decades, in several phases. This is how he started with Jean Lave, with a legitimate peripheral participation. I don't know if you can see this little spiral in the middle of my screen. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see the cursor. I'm trying to move there. Can you see this spiral in the middle? So basically,
Yes,
what Wenger and Leif say is that people join an association, they come from the periphery, and they go in the spiral, in and in and in and in, towards the center of this community. And they say that most of the time, members come as ordinary teachers or just people who are interested in professional development. And as they are moving into the circle or towards the circle, they gain more and more knowledge. They also gain more and more self-confidence. And whereas on the periphery, they were just observers, outside, not outsiders, but observers, rather observers. They get involved in the association more and more, so they start doing things, they start volunteering, and by the time they get into the middle of the spiral here, they have already become conference presenters, article writers, and all sorts of they take on other roles. The trajectory, as we know, is the journey we take in the Language Teachers Association, and the newcomers become solid members of the association, really with roles and responsibilities. Of course, as we already said, that in the communities of practice, engagement is very important. And then as we go towards the center, this involvement is growing because we take on more and more things. And of course, there is interaction, because that's what a community of practice is. And from the periphery towards the center, proceed from the periphery and gaining more and more. And from knowledge consumers, we become knowledge providers, sharing, giving workshops, doing things, and knowledge generators eventually. And what kind of communities of practice do we have in English Language Teachers Associations? Of course, we've got the SIGs on this side of the Atlantic, and you've got the interest sections on your side of the Atlantic. And many English Teachers Associations have regional branches. This is very interesting because, for example, in Japan, there are 50 English Language Teachers Associations. Can you imagine this number? And also in TESOL in America, you have the affiliates. And in Europe or in the UK-based IATFL, we've got the associates. But in the national ELTAs, we could also have regional branches if there are cities who are a little bit further away from the capital, because usually the office and everything is based in the capital of the country. So it's very important to reach out to the periphery in the country as well and get the teachers involved from faraway cities and regions as well. And this was more important before the internet. Now we can have webinars anywhere in the world, but sometimes it's just good to meet for a cup of coffee, for a good hearty chat, for a book club or film club, or something that people do together to engage in professional development. And interestingly, there are other small communities of practices as well. During my research, I learned that in many countries they have film clubs and book clubs. In Hungary, we have the Creative Cafes, which is a monthly CPD event. Every first Friday of the month, we have a 2-hour professional development event. And before the pandemic, we got together in Budapest, and also in the regional branches, there were Creative Cafe events. And now we have them online. And so it's been going on for now, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years or something like that. It's really a nice thing that it didn't stop during the pandemic. And then something that you have in your context, the professional learning networks. Am I right that these used to be the caucuses? Could just somebody please confirm that I am right in thinking of this? Because I heard that in TESOL, this is non-existent in IATEFL or on this side of the world. So I heard that it's not the professional interest that gets you together in smaller communities, but your personal interest, your beliefs. So there are the non-native caucus or now professional learning network, or the LGBTQ community within the association. And I heard that the caucuses have changed their names and then became professional learning networks. Is that correct? Or am I just assuming it? That's what I read on the TESOL website. So let's hope that that's correct. And just going on, it's really interesting. You remember the first figure when there was only one spiral. So we become a member of the community of practice and we go in and in and in and in. And then as we take on different roles, we suddenly realize that actually we are members of not only one community of practice, but different communities of practice. We can be part of the Creative Cafe as an organizer. We also go to the special interest group events, or we organize the film club or whatever. So we can be members of different communities of practice. And what is interesting in this figure here is that people very often go in one community of practice into the middle, and when they reach their own plateau, I'm sorry about the misspelling, I just see that I didn't spell it right. Then so that's the glass ceiling, and then they don't know what to do. So that's their absolute maximum they can gain professionally in that community of practice. And very often what they do is that they move on to a new community of practice. And that's also a natural trend in English language teachers associations, because people, after they observe and they volunteer, and then they take on small roles, and they take on bigger roles and even bigger roles, then they move on to new responsibilities in new communities of practice. What Wenger, I still go back to Wenger, he talks about crossing boundaries. He says that if members belong to different COPs, it means that crossing boundaries, from coming from one to another. And interestingly, they also exchange knowledge. For example, if you think about that many people in TESOL are also members of the Association of Applied Linguistics, and they go to the AL conference, and then they hear, I don't know, whatever, or they do research there in the field of applied linguistics, and they come to TESOL, and then they share their knowledge. So all these different disciplines enrich each other, as we don't always wear only one hat. Sometimes we have many hats, and then we change the different hats. And then this is when we exchange knowledge among each other. And then brokering is another interesting concept in communities of practice. They say sharing good practice from one COP to another, importing and exporting knowledge. This is again crossing boundaries and brokering. So going on, I found this in this book. Serrano and Schrader, unfortunately I never met them, hopefully I will meet them one day. They propose a 4-step leadership cycle. They say that the first step is the pre-leadership stage. And then, as I have already explained with the spiral, smaller leadership positions are taken up as a second step, and then responsible roles in ELTAs. And the last one, step 4, is when we have done everything. We volunteered for our little communities, and then we have been on the committee or the board of trustees, vice president, president, and then we say thank you very much. Now we can enjoy it, and that's the post-service phase, when like what do you call this, advisor or honorary member of the association. You just keep your eyes on the young ones, how they are doing nicely. And Liz talks about the different paths through her stories. She starts her story, and then she says that what she had, what professional career path development she went through, started already in her pre-service years. And this she called forced leadership training, because she wanted to go to a conference. So she went to the dean, I think, and she wanted to ask for some funding. And then to her very surprise, she got the funding. And then, of course, after she came back from this conference, she was already in the association, and she had to do all sorts of things as a volunteer. So this is the forced leadership training. And then she also talks about the traditional path, exactly the same that I described before with the spiral, that you start as a member on the periphery, and you go on, and so you go up and up and up, smaller positions and bigger positions, and then vice president and president, etc. And then she also brings up Kathy Gomez's example, who gained experience, a lot of hands-on experience from real life, working in all sorts of different jobs. And then all those skills were brought into her TESOL life. And then she benefited from the life skills that she gained outside, and she brought them into TESOL. This is actually very similar to what Mick King talks about in his article, also in the same book by Ayman El-Sheikh, Christine Koum, and Okonefyong. Mick says that you do a lot of things before you become a member of the ELTA, and then so all those skills and attributes are really great value in the ELTA. And of course, according to these values and not just values, but the skills and attributes, you get the kind of leadership roles. If you're very good at organizing, then of course, then you're going to be part of the organizing committee for the conference. If you are better at writing, then you're the publication editor. And if you are very good at everything that not like me who started the presentation like that, then of course you can be the internet coordinator or the website manager or do the webinars or something like that. And this is my zigzag trajectory because I've been all over the places. So number one is here in Hungary, in a smaller, not smaller, in a very beautiful city, Pécs, where I did my first degree. And I was trained as a Russian as foreign language teacher and a Hungarian literature teacher, because this was still in the communism, and learning English was still very rare, not very common in Hungary. So however much I always wanted to become an English teacher, I couldn't as a first qualification because I didn't have the possibility. Then I just had a little zigzag. I lived a little bit in Russia, of course, because of my training. Then I also learned Finnish. I lived in Finland. And then I went to England. This is number two, where I was trained as a Rudolf Steiner teacher at a teacher training college for 3 years. And then I thought, yes, that's where I learned English. I was not very young at the time. And then when I came home to Hungary and I wanted to teach in a state school, they told me, oh, these 2 degrees are not good enough for you. We believe you that you speak English and also that you have a teacher degree, but you need to have an English as a foreign language teacher degree. So I did another 4 years of my life. My master's degree is in Budapest. And actually, I count myself quite lucky, because this was the time when I heard about English language teachers associations from my tutors, from my instructors. And that's how I went to my very first IATFL conference. And then after a number of years, after I have become a vice president and president and everything in my association, and then I decided to do my PhD studies in this field. And because I haven't asked any questions from you yet, this is almost question time. In my research, I found these phases. Before ELTAs is the early influences as a foundation for CPD, and not the career path development, but I'm using here now the continuing professional development as a CPD. So, question. What languages do you speak? Can I ask you to put your languages in the chat box? What languages do you speak? I try to see the chat. Arabic, yes. Anybody else? And foreign languages? English, Spanish, Portuguese, wow, German, very impressive. Spanish, Indonesian, Russian, Japanese, Dutch, absolutely amazing, very nice, very good. And yes, and now comes another question. I'd like to know what countries you lived in during your life, because these all belong to early influences as a foundation for continuing professional development. So if you don't mind, I already told you that I lived in Russia, Finland, England. I've only visited Singapore, Japan, Spain, Palestine, US, UK. Yes, anybody else would like to share with us? Zambia, oh, Egypt, Jordan, yes. So, and from the wonderful thing, Iraq, wow, Togo, Indonesia, Hungary. Damon, you lived in Hungary. Oh,
yes.
Very interesting. When? Where?
I was a regional English language officer based there.
Ah, that was before my time. I'm very sorry I didn't meet you then. Very nice. Yes. So, but from the interview study that I conducted, I realized that all these people who later became successful leaders in their associations all spoke different languages, lived in different countries. So all these cultural influences were very, very important for them. And then, so the first steps in ELTAs, when we take our first leadership roles, do you remember when you attended your very first conference, TESOL or local conference? Can you just put it in the chat box? Just a little, go on the memory lane. TESOL 1997, TESOL Arabia 98, TESOL 74. Yes, okay. Nile TESOL in Egypt, SPELT. SPELT is a very active association, really an outstanding, nice one, TESOL Detroit. Thank you so much. And then spreading our wings in ELTAs, this is when we already have responsibility, when we have the leadership positions and we are so active and we work day and night and organize things and run the publications and the webinars and I don't know, everything. And I already talked about the beyond ELTAs, that's the semi-retirement time when we can sit back and relax. And I'm trying to go on. Yes. So you can see the studies, initial career choice, countries, cultures, influential others, and the scholarship. Yes, next question. Can you please put a name or just the position in the chat box, who influenced you to get acquainted with your association, either TESOL or SPELT or Nile or wherever you started your career. You can just put my tutor or my friend or on my own, or I saw it on a website or whatever. Liz England, you see, the world is so small. MA supervisor, exactly, just like with me. Anybody else would like to share who was the influential other in your case? My mentor at work at that time. Amira, you're also here, wonderful, so nice. Exactly, grad school folks. Yes, so basically there is always someone who says, hey, come along. There is this good stuff there. And there I can see some names as well, and probably they are familiar to you. Yes, and then when we can see our first presentations in the first steps in ELTAs, do you remember, I'm pretty sure you all presented many times in your lives. Do you remember your first presentations in your life? Just call the memory, yeah, and put it there in for later, for the chat later. And then what was your first voluntary position in your association? Can you put it in the chat box, please? What was your first leadership position, voluntary position? What was it? What were you volunteering for? Secretary. Ooh, already. Ooh, quite high up. Jump up. High jump. Yes. Interest section chair. That's also quite high up. Yes. Anybody else who remembers? Well, board member. Wow, already board member. So I can see that you didn't have the normal trajectory going along in the COP, but you were already jumped up. President of Central Florida TESOL. Erica, oh dear, you missed out all the little bits on the way through. Yes. And of course, as everybody, all of my interviewees reported, there was this incredible personal growth, not just professional growth during our voluntary work, but personal growth as well. And also the joy of meeting like-minded people. I mean, why do we get together for these professional talks? Because people think similarly, and we enjoy hearing other people's ideas. And then in the third phase, when we have all the full responsibility in our associations, I can see that some of you have already, that was the first position in your life. We are learning all the skills. What kind of skills did you learn? Can you just name one, the most important that you did not know before, or you didn't have it before? Excuse me, I just have a little water while you're writing. Thinking outside the box, rest, organizing a conference. Ooh, that's a skill. Teamwork. Anybody else would like to share? Yes. Yes, public presentation. Oh, absolutely. I tell you a wonderful story about one of my interviewees. This person was a student at his university, and he's just graduated, finished, and then his previous mentor said that there's this conference, the national conference in their town, and everybody has to present. And then he said, oh, no, I can't do that. I'm just a teacher. And then the mentor said, no, we all go for the presentations. And then this person said, I was just trembling there like a leaf. I didn't know what to say. It was not a very successful presentation. And I'm not telling you who the person is, but you can guess one of the presidents or past presidents of either IATEFL or TESOL. I tell you. So that's how we start with the presentations. And of course, there are some people who already born on board, and like Erika and Amira, who know everything from the beginning. But other people have their curve to learn. And then, of course, there are turning points. One of the interviewees also said that I was always afraid of public speaking, and I was trying to avoid. And of course, I gave little workshops, but 20, 30 people was fine, max 50 people. But when I was asked first to deliver a plenary talk, then I got really nervous. And then she said that, and then I did it, and that was all right. And after this, I was invited to Spelt, Pakistan, where I had to speak in front of 1,000 people. Yeah, I mean, these are the learning curves that we go through in leadership positions. And then, of course, it's very important that Liz also talks about this teacher well-being, because when we volunteer, we tend to do too much. We can't say no. We have to do, we stay up late, our health is not very good, etc., etc. So we should look after ourselves. Teachers' well-being is very important, and leaders' well-being is even more important. Because as we know, a happy mother, happy child, a happy teacher, happy students, and a happy leader and a happy association. Right, I just go on a little, because then I would like to finish before the question and answer time. And so this is one possible TESOL leadership path. Member, volunteer, small positions, committee member, vice president and president, and the advisory board member. We already covered this. And then we have seen that there are very different leadership paths. It's not always linear. You just have the high jump or whatever. It depends on the context, depends on your skills, what you bring with yourself. Depends also on the country where you just set up a new association. And of course, the most talented person is picked to become the president immediately. But if it's an older association, then of course it's a different process that you have to go through. So I'm just looking at the time. These are my references. I used a lot of the articles or basically all the articles for my dissertation from this book. This is really a wonderful resource. I also love Liz's book, read it many times. And I also have written a couple of articles as part of my PhD studies, of course. You can have a look at them if you're interested. One more thing I wanted to highlight. I forgot to talk about Dudley Reynolds. He was also past TESOL president. And in this book, he talks about English language teachers associations as systems. And this is not far from Wenger's communities of practice idea, but Dudley is talking about the systems that for leaders today, we always have to acquire this systems thinking approach, that we are all in a system. We cannot function healthily if we don't think that we are in a bigger system, but our system also contains small subsystems. And then I can't be egotistic. I can't only think about my system, because I'm an enthusiastic and very motivated leader, and I want my little COP to succeed, my system, because then he says, Dudley says that then I take away the resources from the other community of practice. So we can only work together if we look at each other where the interests are in each part of the association. And then history of IATEFL, the first 50 years of the International Association of Teachers of English as a Foreign Language. And basically that's all I wanted to show you. And I'm very happy to see you. Now I can see the faces and some beautiful photos as well. And I don't know if we had any questions in the chat box. I didn't pay attention because I was concentrating on the other things. But if there are any questions, yes, Mohammed, you would like to say something or ask something. Maybe you would like to share something.
Thank you, Beatrix, for the very interesting talk. This is my first time actually to attend a workshop or a webinar that talks about teacher development in English language. I once gave a talk for the British Council about teacher development and how teachers can develop themselves in doing training and practices and working on their own skills. And talking about being associated with different organizations and groups and communities of practice, something very interesting, and that raises a big question for me. I always call for people to develop their skills. I've never thought how I can help them connect to such communities of practices and SIG, etc. My question is to you, how can I help teachers? How can we as teachers help each other in not only developing the skills, but also be part of such communities? And I'm talking about low income countries that going to TESOL is a dream for them. They cannot really afford going to TESOL or IATEFL or other conferences. And even those who work at universities and good universities in the Middle East, for example, some countries, they're not really able to afford attending or being part of such organizations because it costs money and expenses, etc. What's your advice in helping such people who are interested, but they don't have the access of that resources? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your question. I think it's very important that we should decentralize ELT. So instead of thinking about the big association, TESOL and IATEFL, we should break down the system into smaller bits. And then, of course, that there are some of us, the fortunate ones, who can attend the big IATEFL conference or the TESOL conference. But when we go back to our small our context, then we can take everything back with us that we have learned. And so I think that local initiatives are very important in ELT, because if we organize these like the creative cafes on every first Friday of the month, so these or any other small gatherings, professional gatherings, where teachers can exchange their knowledge and skills and everything, then it has already achieved its aim. So we don't all have to go to the very big conferences, and then we can also encourage people to come with us. Very important that these gatherings should be also enjoyable, and the people would feel good there. It's not just cognitive. This part I still have to learn a lot about this, because I also tend to talk about cognitive things, but so people have to enjoy being together and do things together. So I think being in teachers associations is also professional development, and those are the tangible benefits that we know, that the resources, the books, the workshops, the talks, etc., but also the intangible benefits that we belong to like-minded people. We belong to other professionals who think in the same way, and then lots of social events could be just added to the professional bit. I'm not saying that these should be like clubs or going for, I don't know, journeys or trips or dancing or whatever. This is different, but to have a little bit of social element in there. Any other question? I don't know if that was something that I.
That's very helpful. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Can I put in a shameless plug here?
Yeah.
So Mohammed, in response also to your question and in addition to what Beatrice has said, we're always looking for people to present our webinars. And if you have a good idea, we would love to hear from you. I put this link to the form.
Sure.
Yeah, I put the link to the form here and in the chat. And if you are interested, you speak to either Linda or myself. We get people from all over the world coming in and having conversations like this.
Sure.
And if we're limited by travel, then this is an excellent opportunity.
Yes,
Sorry, now I'm passing over
to.
I'm passing it back to Beatrice and Damon.
Yes,
Linda
Damon
is
would
my
like
friend
to say.
and I would love to present with her.
Yes, yes, looking forward. Damon? You're muted, we can't hear you. If you unmute yourself, then it's.
Okay, I just want to say, I think we shouldn't always see professional development as attending conferences.
Yes.
There are so many different ways of doing professional development. Reading books, and you have your list of books that you read is a great list of books for other people to read who are interested. Watching videos yourself, you know, there are a lot of things you can do on your own that you don't have to do. I also like the things that you said, Beatrice, and just to follow up on what Mohammed was asking was, when somebody comes back from a conference, when I was directing an intensive English program at Arizona State University, anybody I sponsored to a conference, when they came back, they had to share their information. They had to share it. They couldn't, that was part of the agreement of sponsorship. So getting people to come back and to share what they learned. And sometimes when you're at a conference, you find people that you really like, you know, and say, oh, wow, you know, Richard Boyum, you gave such a great talk. Richard, would you come and could you come and talk to my people, or could we do a video conference with you, with my people? So you taking the initiative to kind of invite people. So anyway, I just wanted to add those few little things. Yes, Richard's a great presenter, by the way.
Yes, I also wanted to say that, are you here or have I lost you?
You're here.
Yes. Okay, I just wanted to add that going to each other's events in countries, I mean, probably this would be like state events in your case in North America, but I can see my wonderful neighbor here, Anita Jokic, who is the president of HUPE, the Croatian Teachers Association from my neighborhood. And this is just so nice. And also this is how we started this whole ELTA development here in Central Europe, that we were going to each other's conferences. And of course, the leaders were always inspired each other with the wonderful ideas. When I see my neighboring countries, how many good things they're doing, then of course I always want to do the same, also want to do the same. And so that's how we also grow, not just personally, but as associations as well.
And maybe make a comment, sort of following up on
Yes.
that, Beatrix and Damon. The time during COVID gave me lots of time to really explore YouTube, which was a resource I just didn't have much time for when I was working full blast, you know, full time before I retired. But it's amazing, almost all the conferences and, you know, presentations and events have a YouTube channel or put things up And so as Damon said, you know, you don't really physically have to go anywhere. You can get an enormous amount of professional development and new ideas just right from your own screens. And I think that that's a resource that you know we do need to promote. And these webinars and the whole CPD agenda is taking good advantage of that. And then the other thing one of the previous speakers mentioned was that sense of community. And I think going to conferences and mixing and mingling does give you that sense of belonging to a greater whole. And especially in places that are under-resourced or where, like in your case, English was not the best subject to be teaching or engaged with, it gives you that sense of validates your work and gives you a sense of ownership and of belonging. So good reasons to do both, I think.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. Yes,
I think
Erica, you also wanted to say something.
Hi, everyone. What a pleasure to be with you. And thank you for your comments and ideas. I find that, Beatrix, what you said is to source locally, you know, maybe just make a coffee date, or if you don't drink coffee, you know, a lemonade date with someone and say, hey, can we get together? I'm going to be teaching fundamentals of grammar. What are some fun things that you do? Or I really enjoy, the reason I love serving and doing all these things, I learned so much. And I will meet up with someone, hey, can we go out for lunch? And inevitably, if you're a TESOL teacher, even if you're like, we're just going to have social time, you're going to talk about your students, you're going to talk about something and just share over some good food. I like to sit in on a fellow teacher's class just to get ideas or see the different styles. You know, if I'm not teaching at the same time as that person, then I can sit in and say, oh, I really like that. And I really get a lot from at break time. We get like 10 to 15-minute breaks and sitting down and saying hello and exchanging some ideas that way. So I understand. I've been in places where it's very under-resourced, but we are resources for one another. And also I believe in abundance. So if I have an idea, I don't just hold it to myself. I make sure to share it. Hey, I read this great article, or hey, I was thinking about doing this, you know? And Richard, I watch like so much on YouTube. I'm lucky at Seminole State every week, our faculty development center, which is very small, they will send out an email with here's some resources. And sometimes maybe if you work at a school, you have access to some memberships at the college level, and you can also join some webinars.
Absolutely. Yes. And also, I mean, I learned in the pandemic that there are no distances now. We can have our professional homes anywhere in any community. Damon, you still want to say something? I wouldn't like to take it away from you. You're still muted, so please unmute yourself.
Okay, I don't want to use up too much time just for me, but one thing I noted earlier on, I would like to just say again is that I think you and Mick and Liz should actually be more pointed about talking about volunteerism and how important that is in terms of entering your spirals and progressing through the spirals. I think that that it shouldn't be something that's assumed, that it's something that really needs to be talked about. Just my thought.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Damon, if you haven't already done it, or if you wouldn't mind, I would love it if you did a presentation on your Relo experience.
Yes.
Oh, I'd be happy to do it along with Richard Boyum.
That was what I was just about to say.
Better.
Can we throw Richard under the bus there too, please?
Sure.
Yes.
I notice Richard is staying quiet.
how it starts. I told you, this is the influential other.
Yeah.
Erica says, come on, Damon, I would like you to present next time. And then Damon says, I will go along with Richard.
Just because it's muted, but that's all. But yeah, sure, we'll talk, Damon.
All right, that was a great idea, Erica and Richard and Damon. I will be emailing you.
Yes.
All right, well, we have come to the end of our time here. Do we have any last minute burning questions before we all say goodbye, adios, sayonara?
I have one thing to add. Mick is
Yes.
watching us on Facebook because he doesn't have the bandwidth to stream to
Okay.
join us here. And he said to say hi, Beatrix.
Hi, Mick. See you in Belfast. See you in Belfast next week. Yes, and
And I would like
Anita
to,
is also here. Yes, hello, Anita. We are going to Belfast.
Hi,
together. Yes.
I just came to Belfast.
You are in Belfast.
Yeah, I just landed like an hour
Wow.
ago.
Thank you
Yeah.
for joining us.
Yes, I wanted to join earlier, but I was on the plane, so I couldn't. So when are you coming?
I'm going on Monday morning, early morning.
Okay, I'll be waiting.
Yes, good.
Okay. And you mentioned neighboring associations. Do you remember how you came to be a plenary speaker? We just met by chance, and then we had a coffee, and then I came to Hungary, we had another coffee, and then you were a plenary speaker.
Exactly, this is what happened. So Anita and I went to the Slovenian English Teachers Conference, and there was a social evening, a pub quiz. And Anita and I were on the same team. I don't know, we had to talk about films and I don't know, whatever, dance and sing. And it was great fun. And then we exchanged contacts, and then we met up a couple of times. And then Anita wrote to me if I wanted to be a plenary speaker in Šibenik at the Adriatic Sea. That was last November.
And you were the best speaker. Yep, the best plenary speaker. Yeah, you got the highest grades. Yep.
Thank you.
I don't know if I ever told you.
No,
Probably
you
not.
didn't.
No, okay. Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, and it was 300 people voting, so you know.
Oh, super.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll go unpack and I'll be waiting for you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hello, everybody else. Come to Croatia in November. By the sea.
Yes, if you want to invite Anita to give a good talk, she's also excellent. Yeah.
I had a online workshop at the airport this morning.
Oh.
Yes,
Good.
wonderful background with.
Yes, that's what real professionals do nowadays. Go to the airport and give a session.
Yes, well, I checked in 3 hours earlier and then that was it. Okay, well, I'll go unpack. Enjoy yourselves and see you very soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
okay. Well, I would like to say a big, big thank you to Beatrix for this wonderful presentation and very interactive presentation, and a very international group who joined us. I'm so very happy. And also I would like to thank Lynn, our CPD leadership team, and for running tech, our tech wizard, and to Damon, and all of you who have joined us from all parts of the world. Thank you so much, and thank you for your great participation and questions for Beatrice. And this is yet another, it just goes along with what Beatrice was saying. This is a form of community right here where we're sharing ideas with each other. And so we appreciate each and every one of you. And those of you who came in late, you're welcome to go to our YouTube channel and take a look at the presentation, or even those who have watched it and would like to watch again. So Thanks once again, and I hope you all have a good day, good afternoon, good evening, for wherever you are. Our next presentation is going to be June 5th. It's a Sunday, and it is Mr. Hassoum Diop. He is from Senegal, and he is going to be talking about designing and implementing a blended learning English program in Senegal. So I will shortly be posting information about that. So please watch the Facebook page for times and dates and everything. Okay, thanks to all of you.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation.